Kakadosh, Boker Or, I wanted to share with you a beautiful idea on this week's Parashah. Do you know we always have to believe that Kol ma David Rachmana letavavid. Whatever Hashem does is always for the best. And in this week's Parashah, Haye Sara, it starts by Chayei Sara. The life of Sara was going to be 100 years, right? And 20 years and 7 years. And this is the life of Sara. And Rashi says, Kulan Shavin Letova. What does that mean now, Kulan Shavim L'Tova? They were all good. The kavanah of Rashi obviously had to be is, why did it have to say, these are the lives, these are the years of Sara? It tells you, Vayu Chayei Sara, this is the life of Sara. It tells you how long she lived. 100 shana, 20 shana, 7 shanim, 127. There's a whole question, why does it say shana in between each one? Just say 127, fine. But then it says, Shnei Chayei Sara. This is the life of Sara. You just told me Vayu Chayei Sara. So why is it repetitive? Why is it superfluous? And therefore, the Rashi comes and he says, Kulan Shavin L'Tova. Why did it say they were all equal in good? They were all good. Now we have to say, Irachanam, you're right, it's extra. Shnei Chayei Sara is superfluous. But whoever told you that they're all good? How does Rashi know the fact that it says this is the years of Sara, that it means that they were all good? So it comes and it says like this. It says, really, the explanation is that by Sara Imenu, when it says Shnei Chayei Sara, it means her entire life, she lived, she fulfilled, she actually achieved, she was an achiever. What does that mean? That's Chayei Shalom, right? She lived her days, which means there was not one day that she didn't maximize her day. There was not one day that, and that's the explanation when we say Kol ma David Rachmana letavavid, because sometimes a person doesn't understand that really something that just happened was for their good. And they think that they just blew a day or they didn't do something. But no, a person that understands that everything is good, every day was good. Now, if you think about it, that's actually incredible, because by Sara, there were many years and many times throughout her life where you could have said, what's going on? She was taken by Elmaleh. She was abducted. She was abducted by Paro. She was, her brother-in-law, or sorry, not her brother-in-law, her brother, which was also, right, her brother, right, which is Lot, right? He was taken into captivity. Her father was killed, thrown into the furnace after Abraham Avinu, and he was killed. That's Haran, the brother of Abraham Avinu. There were so many times that if you think about it through her lifetime, you're going to say, listen, is they all good? Is it all going to be good? But now we understand the Midrash. The Midrash says in Midrash Rabbi, Parashat Numchet, Vayu Chayei Sara 100 shana, Yodea Hashem Temimim, Yimei Temimim, V'nachalatam leolam tiyeh. What does that mean? He comes and he says like this, just like they are Temimim, they are complete, they are full, so too she was going to be full, right? Whether it's in her lifetime, in her years, or in her actions. So the Midrash is actually saying that she was Tamim, and we understand that the Rishonim, they learned this from the Pasuk, Tamim tiyeh im Hashem Elokecha. You have to be Tamim with Hashem. What does that mean? Sheniyached, says the Ramban over there on the Pasuk, and also the Charedim, Sheniyached levavenu, elav levado. We have to designate our heart only to Hashem, shehu levado se'akol, that He's the only one that does everything. V'yodea mitat kol atid, He knows the truth, what's going to happen in the future, and therefore He comes and He knows. V'lo niftach sheyavohu divrei al kol panim, aval im nishma davar mehem ne'emar akol b'dei shamayim. Something happens, we know everything comes from Hashem. We understand that. We understand that everything comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Ki Hashem, Elokei Elokim, Elyon al Hakol. Hashem is above on everything, right? Hakol Yachol, He could do whatever He wants, right? He says He comes and He changes, whether it's going to be the constellations and the mazalot and everything, and we have to believe that. Ki Tamim hu Hashalem b'davar. Because when it says Tamim, it means complete. It means a whole. It means that you're without a blemish. Set Tamim, and that's exactly what it means to say when it says that she was Tamim. It means that she had a beautiful bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that everything was from Hashem. And therefore, no matter what you threw at her, no matter what befell upon her, she was always Tzmimah, that it was always good. And that's where it comes, and we actually understand this. The Gemara in Berachot, Daf Samech, right? Amud Bet says, Chayav Adam levarech. A person is obligated to make a bracha on the bad, just like he makes on the good. What does it mean that he's obligated to make a bracha on the bad? Shema Recha Tova. Marava lo nitzicha. What does it mean? That he accepts it b'simcha. Meaning that he accepts that anything that happens to him, he always has to accept that it happens and that it's good and that he's happy about it. And that's why they said about Rabbi Akiva that a person should always say Kol Madav Richarmana Natabavid, and that's what's brought down in Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch actually brings us down, and he says, right, as follows. He says, right? He comes and he says this: Ki hara'a leovdei Hashem is simchatam v'tovatam. It's bad in the eyes of the people that serve Hashem is actually their simcha, because once he accepts it ba'ava, ma shegazar alav Hashem, that which Hashem decreed upon him, it comes out of the receiving of the bad. He's actually serving Hashem with that as well. Which that's why it's simcha. And the Mishnah Berurah brings down over there, ki be'emet kol ha'yisurin, any type of suffering, whether it's in his goof, in his body, or in his money, everything is going to be for an atonement in order that he doesn't have to go chas shalom and get punished a worse punishment. So for everything is actually very, very good. And that's why the Rambam comes and he writes in the Pirusha Mishnayot, Amru, just like they said that a person has to be mevarech ala tova, he has to accept, right, everything with simcha, just like on the Baruch Dayan HaEmet as well. So everything he's actually accepting, whether it's going to be the tova or the ra'ah. So there was an incredible story that happened with the Ramban, right? This is brought down in Yalkut Me'am Loez, Parashat Shofetim, Amud Pe'alef. It says over there, we're talking about, right, this follows. There was a story with a Talmid of the Ramban. He became sick, and the Ramban came to visit him. Yeah, and he saw that that's it. The Ramban saw that the person was going to pass away. So he tells him, listen, Shema ben Abini, listen to me, I'm going to command you something. You should know in Olam Elyon, there's a Hechal Elyon, and there's Kisaot LaMishpat, and the Shekhinah is there. He says, take this kamiyah, and you should know that with this kamiyah, you'll be able to go upstairs and go anywhere where you want, until you're going to go to this Hechal Elyon. And there you're going to ask a few questions that I have to do with Klal Yisrael. And he gave him the questions, right? And he says that after Me'av Esrim, he should come to him in a dream and he should tell him the answers. The Talmid went and he passed away. So imagine this person comes, he passes away. Okay. After passing away, what happens? He comes and he says like this. He says, right? Niftar v'tolomo, the Ramban was by his window and he was learning Torah, and all of a sudden the Talmid comes in front of him. Says the Talmid, Yada Rabbeinu shebechol makom shebati. Rabbeinu, you should know any place where I came. And I showed them this kamiyah. I showed them this amulet that you gave me. They opened up the gates and they gave me the reshut to go up and up and up until this Hechal. Usheratziti to show when I wanted to ask the questions that you prepared me. Immediately I saw that there was no questions anymore. In Olam HaEmet, there in the Olam HaEmet, he says everything's b'tzedek mishpat. There was nothing to ask anymore. I saw your questions I was going to start asking, and there was no questions to ask. Everything was already answered even before I come and I ask. So he comes and he says, this is actually come and it hurts us in this world because we don't understand. But in Olam Haba, in Olam HaEmet, there we actually understand that everything was actually for the good. And that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and he tells us, we have to accept it with simcha. We have to accept it with love. We have to accept it that we understand that we don't understand. If somebody is going to ask us, we do not understand. We are clueless. But we have emunah shlema that we know that Hashem is looking out for us. We have emunah shlema that we know that Hashem wants the best for us and that everything that happens is going to be good. And that's why they once asked the Chavetz Chaim, and he answered. He went and he said, Lo yamazik im yaksat yoter tov. He said, he once asked, no, how are you doing? He says, it wouldn't hurt if it would have been a little bit better. Yeah? So the Chavetz Chaim comes and he answered him, right? What? You think that Hashem doesn't know? He says, how do you know that it wouldn't have been worse? He says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows much more than what you know. And therefore, he's Rachum v'Chanun. And if he wanted to be better, it would have been better. And therefore, if it's not better, that means that Be'emet, it would have been damaging to you if it would have been better. That's what you think. That means the Chavetz Chaim was coming and saying, right? It's okay. It could be better. It could be better. If it could have been better, it would have been better. The fact that it's not better means that Hashem doesn't want us to be better, which means that it's not better for the person, because we don't know more than Hashem. And that's why a person actually has to understand this, right? And he has to have the bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He has to understand that that is a bitachon that a person has to understand, has to say. The Gaon Mividna comes and he says, Tov lachzor ma'Hashem yituach min divim. Says a person, he always has to better to pray and to put his bitachon in Hashem more than in anybody else. He comes and he says, one of them is HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him that he's going to give him hon va'osher. He's going to give him all the best. Just like we see HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave it to Avraham Avinu. And number two, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, emavticho, but himself, Adam be'atzmo, he puts his bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's nikra chisayon, tzur chasayu bo. And therefore, right, me'atzmo yasim yashlech al Hashem, right, af shelo iftiach lo Hashem, he comes and he says, somebody that's going to be boteach in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he's going to do with him chesed, even though Hashem didn't even give him the guarantee, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will do with him chesed. Because since you put your bitachon in Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will do that chesed with you. He will come and he will do it. So why is it that Sara, right, why didn't she have the bitachon that she wouldn't have tzarot? So therefore, if a person has bitachon, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why don't you just say, you know what, you'll never have something bad happening, right, in your lifetime. And then that's it, right? And you don't have to, so that's the question. The question is, why is it that a person doesn't have? So he says like this, Ve'en le'adher al kama kedoshim mirishonei harishonim shesavlu kama tzarot v'raot. Never think about that. You have sometimes rishonim that they had terrible things fall upon them. So why didn't they just have bitachon that nothing bad would ever happen? Just like Rabbi Akiva, that he comes and he says, Kol yamayim hayiti mitzta'er, I was suffering that I wanted to say Shema Yisrael. But therefore you see from here, that look at the God, the bitachon, that a person wants whatever Hashem wants. And therefore the tzaddikim, they didn't want to have bitachon and Hashem to save them. It was the opposite. They wanted to accept upon themselves Yisurim be'ahava uv'simcha. Meaning, even though you're right, if they would have had bitachon, then nothing bad would happen. Nothing bad would have happened. But they serve Hashem with such a love that they say, Hashem, whatever you want goes. I can save myself, but I don't want to. Whatever you want is what I want. And that's the darga gevua midat bitachon. The chovot halovot, this is something actually incredible, right? That a person should actually just understand, right? The Leshem Shavo v'Achlama came and he was the one that said this. So chovot halovot also says the same thing. When he's talking about bitachon, he comes and he says, Yirtzeh b'ma sheyeh, right? Migzerat Elokim. A person should always want that which Hashem wants. Yismach b'chol asher asa Elokim, and then just be happy with what Hashem gives you in your lot. Whether it's riches, wealth, whether it's sicknesses, whether it's with anything, because that's what Hashem wants, and that's what we have to actually do. So we do find that the Var Nifla, that a person says Kol ma David Rachmana letavavid, what happens? It actually changes everything letova, kefi rotzono. And that's why the Ben Yehoyada actually comes and he explains in the Gemara over there in the Sipur of Rabbi Akiva, when he said Kol ma David Rachmana letavavid, he says that which the Gemara says that a person has to say this. Why does it say this? The Gemara already said it, so why do you need to show with Rabbi Akiva? But he says like this, the kavanah is that when a person opens up his mouth for good, even if there was a gezerah for bad, he could annul it. And therefore he comes and he says, right, kol ma she'atem ro'im ata she'akol na'asa l'tova, anything that you see now will become good. Because since you said it, right, al ken davar she'na'asa davdi mishamayim l'tav, it's good. So the fact that you open up your mouth and you said it, all of a sudden now it changes everything. And that's why you should always open up your mouth for the good. And that's what also the Maharal Mifrag says. Kasher yomar ala davar shenira ra, v'boteach bo yitbarach, yitem Hashem yitbarach oto ra letova. When something bad befalls upon you, and you come and you say it's good, but it's bad, all of a sudden that has the power that HaKadosh Baruch Hu changes it for the good. Because be'emet, once you said that it was good, and you have bitachon in Hashem that it is good, Hashem will change it for the good. And that's what Rosh Shlomo Kluger comes and he says, Hodu LaHashem ki tov, ki leolam chasto, Yomana Yisrael, ki leolam chasto. So he says that's the explanation in Nachum Ish Gamzu, when he said Gamzu letovah, that everything changed for the tov. He says, Rak Adam be'omro shu ra'ah nepach al yidei amirato lera'ah. He comes and he says, but if he says letovah, na'aseh letovah. He says when a person comes and he sees something bad and he says it, so it'll be bad. But he says, but if he comes and he's going to say good, it changes it. And that's why we say, Hodu LaHashem ki tov, ki leolam chasto. Why? Because everything is chesed, even the bad. And even though we don't see it, we will say that it's going to be good. Because once we say that everything is actually going to be for our best. That in essence is what a person is supposed to understand. The bracha, that we realize, that we recognize that everything is good. And once we recognize everything is good, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will come and he'll finish off the job and make it good. I'll just finish off by saying that to look at the mishmar that we gave last night, that asked an incredible question we asked. It was the question that how could it be that Avraham Avinu had the last test, which was Kvurat Sara in this week's Parashah. According to all the opinions, he had 10 tests. So Mishnah and Pirkei Avot, Asara, right? Asara Nisyonon Nidnasa Avraham Avinu. But there's machloko between the Rishonim. What were the 10 tests? Majority of the Rishonim say Akedat Yitzchak was the last one. But Rabbeinu Yonah and also the Ramban and others, they bring a proof from the Gemara and Baba Batra that the last test was this week's Parashah. He had to bury Sara and there was no place where to bury her. Sorry. And the question that we ask ourselves is, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu already said, I already know that you're a God-fearing person in the end of after that Kedah, so what type of a test is the 10th test? And the Ramban said something incredible, which is this Yesod. All the other tests, the majority of them were all had to do with contradictions. HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and he says, right, I'm going to give you a child. After coming and telling him that, he comes and he says, only, what about Yishmael? No, he's nothing. You're going to have a child through Yitzchak, is going to be all your children. Then he comes and he tells him, go kill Yishmael. Avraham Avinu doesn't ask questions. He's going to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I don't understand you. You told me, first of all, I'm going to have a child. Then it happened 13 years later. Then I have to kill him. Then all of a sudden, a malach comes and he says, don't kill him. Then he says, I don't understand you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what's going on? He can ask a million questions. He doesn't. Those were the first tests. The last test was to see through the darkness. To see when Sarai Menu passes away, can I see good? Can I see that everything is good from the darkness? And that was the last test. So look at the Mishmar last night. It was an incredible Yesod, which I think Bezat Hashem, I think could apply exactly to this shiur as well, Bezat Hashem.